Alright, hello and welcome. This is the UV component introduction video. So, in this video, we're going to just be looking at basic terminology and some higher level terminology too. To get started, we go to polygon primitives and take off interactive creation. This allows me to switch between geometry very quickly. Like if I click a box, it becomes a box. I don't have to click and drag in the viewport. So I always keep that off. Here, we're going to look at the three major components first. Right click, go to vertex. We can highlight a single vertex, or we can highlight many, commonly known as vertices. So that's a plural thing. And we can go in here and manipulate that single vertex or vertices by highlighting all of them. There's some basic terminology that spills over into the other components, like we can highlight a shell, okay? Control right click to shell allows us to highlight all the vertices on that component, or all the components, vertices on this object, sorry. So, object, component, all right. We can also highlight edges or faces. The fourth component is a UV. If we highlight a UV, we can't move or manipulate in any way in the 3D window UVs. We can go WER on the keyboard or go over here all day long, but it doesn't allow you to do that. If you go into Window, we have UV Texture Editor. In UV Texture Editor, everything's backwards. Okay, think about it that way. Over here, I can highlight a UV and manipulate it. I can highlight all the UVs or the shell and manipulate those. I can highlight one UV, hold Control right click and go to shell, just like I can in the 3D window. But if I highlight a vertex, I can't move them. I can see them, but I can't move them. Same with edges and same with faces. Okay. Now, we can switch the selection. Let's say I highlight this face, and over here I go Control right click and go to UV. So that highlights all 4 UVs on that face. So there is ways to communicate with the two. We can switch different selections back and forth, but just know that X, Y, and Z over here is our 3-dimensional space, and U and V is our directional space over here. So U being X positive and negative, V being up and down. But you have to kind of think of that a little bit different, because an object can be rotated over here and the direction might not make sense over here. So you'll see that in a second as I introduce another component called a normal. Okay, so here is a polyplane, and we can go to shading and turn on backface culling. I would highly suggest always keeping this on with any workflow, because backface culling will allow you to see the surface direction negative. Okay, so right now I'm looking at the positive surface direction and the negative surface direction. So that is a normal. Now over here, if I flip this around and look at the negative, over here is not going to be looking at the negative, right? This is the blue is the positive, but when we're talking about this window, we're talking about positive W. Okay, so W direction. All right, now here's going to be the stumper. And don't worry about this too much, because this doesn't come up very often, but we can be looking at the positive normal. And we could also be looking at the negative W. Looking at negative W, or the surface structure of W over here, if we have it in the negative, things are backwards when we do workflows. Basically, if we unfold something, something will unfold inward, not outward. So just like backface culling over here, there is a way to look at the positive and negative of this world, and that is this right here. So I always suggest keeping that on. Okay, to kind of look at this in a different fashion, let's say I mess up the UVs a little bit. Let's go like that, and let's highlight all the UVs, and let's go in here to unfold. You can see because I had the negative W direction highlighted. Look what happened to the UVs. They got all like jacked up and weird on one side. So let's go like this. Let's flip the W so that more of the faces are facing this way, or all of them. Notice that there are colors here. There's blue, there's purple, and there's kind of a pink. Okay, and if you had them flipped, there is red, purple, and ugly fuchsia. So those colors really do mean something, just not to you yet. We'll get to that. Okay, if I unfold this now, you'll see that it's a little bit better. But it didn't flip it. It didn't go down here. The reason it flipped it, it had to calculate for flipping W and then flipping it around. That's why W is very important. It makes things harder for you if you don't know it exists. And sometimes 3D students do not know it exists because they don't, well, they were never taught W. But it does exist. Now over here, here's another thing. If we're looking at the positive normal and I go to reverse this, you'll see it switches W over here. Now I'm looking straight down at this and I can see through it because of backface culling. So normal direction is very important in 3D space. Negative W is really important in this space. But just because this one's negative doesn't mean that this one always has to be negative, because it could be a positive. That's what I mean by don't get confused too much about the W and the normal direction right off the bat. As we go through the actual videos, we're going to look at why things occur and how things get messed up. But just know normals and W are two of the most important things to think about when things are screwing up. All right, especially in texture workflows. All right, so now we have 3D world, we have 2D world, the laws therein, and what we can look at. Now let's move on to the next video where we kind of make sense of it all. Well, not just in that one video, but in many videos, but that one's the start of it.